All right, breaking overnight, a bombshell report of possible leaks at the FBI. Republican lawmakers are investigating whether FBI agent Peter Strzok and his lover, girlfriend, Lisa Page, who is a lawyer for the FBI, leaked information about the Russian probe to the media. In one text exchange, it appears the two knew in advance about an article in the Wall Street Journal, and then they discussed making it seem like they found the article by coincidence. Woohoo! These are the same FBI agents, right, who sent a series of anti-Trump texts to each other. And let's not forget Mr. James Comey, who admitted publicly that he himself was a leaker via his friend at Columbia to the New York Times. Rejoining me right now with more, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, I'm going to get to the DACA stuff with you in a second, but first of all, this FBI couple, is the proof of their text, what was being exchanged between them, enough for you to think the Mueller investigation is seriously tainted and they need to start from ground zero?
Well, absolutely, Trish. Another day in Washington, another stunning revelation evidencing bias in the Mueller investigation, where the very people involved in that investigation weren't following the facts to a legal conclusion. They were trying to go and create salacious moments in the media to discredit our president of the United States elected by the people. This is an erosion of democracy, where you have people who are at the FBI and then ultimately end up investigating the president, first indicating their bias that they hate him, second, developing an insurance policy to discredit him through this dossier, and then third, leaking information to the media that could have potentially compromised national security, but at a bare minimum calls into question the very legitimacy and integrity of the institutions that we have to rely on in this democracy. So a stunning revelation, and it requires even more congressional oversight to ensure that the president is treated fairly.
I want to back up for a minute and share some of these texts with our viewers. It basically suggests that they knew an article was coming out, and they wanted that article to then get populated amongst those at the FBI. Lisa Page writes, article is out, but hidden behind paywall, so can't read it. Peter Strzok writes, Wall Street Journal, question mark, boy, that was fast. No word from redacted. Should I find it and tell the team? And by the way, find is in quotations. You know, look, we don't know what they were doing, but it certainly seems as though they had information about this article. And when you're looking at an FBI that's leaking like a sieve, and now you have texts like this, you know, you put two and two together, it doesn't look good.
And in putting two to two together, you have to evaluate the context of the other things that Peter Strzok and his mistress, Lisa Page, were doing around this time. And remember, they were talking about the fact that they didn't think a single American could reasonably vote for Donald Trump. They thought Hillary Clinton should win 100 million to nothing. And then they developed an insurance policy in the event that Donald Trump did win that involved discrediting him, investigating him, and then leaking information that would embarrass him while he was trying to put together his transition team and ultimately assume the responsibility that is so important to this great country, the responsibility of the presidency. The question now becomes, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to allow an investigation so intractably infected with bias to continue, or will Congress step forward and say, this is not a probe that instills any confidence in the American people, that we're going to have a just result? And perhaps this is one area where the president might need to rethink what he said to the media. The president said he believes that Mr. Mueller will be fair and unbiased. But each and every day we get more information that the key members of the Mueller probe had a bias, they acted on that bias, and the end result was to discredit and undermine the person that the voters selected to be our president. That's troubling in our democracy.
I would say, Congressman, I've spent a lot of time studying the economies of Latin America and South America. And, you know, one thing that we've always had over them is a sense of trust in the system and transparency in the system. And when I see things like this, I guess what I'm most worried about, Congressman, is that it appears as though if there's such bias, could people internally within the FBI, within the so-called deep state, as some like to refer to it as, be actually trying to undermine the will of the American people in a banana republic coup-like attempt?
It does read like a palace coup. And we recently had Andrew McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI, providing answers to members of the Judiciary Committee. And I would suggest to you that there were a number of inconsistencies in the testimony that Mr. McCabe gave. And then just days after giving that testimony, he announced his retirement. So I don't think that was a coincidence. Page and Strzok, the people who sent the messages that you just shared with viewers, talked about a plan that they had hatched in Andy's office. This was the insurance plan in the event that Donald Trump was elected president, and we're starting to see each and every day more elements of that plan to embarrass the president, to undermine him, and it's outrageous that Strzok then found himself as a part of Mueller's probe, the very same probe that employed as its number 2 Andrew Weissmann, who attended Hillary Clinton's election night party. So time and again, more proof of bias, more need to expose it, to tell the American people the truth, and then hopefully to move on to the important issues that impact quality of life for the American people.
You can't allow something like that to undermine our democracy. Good to see you, Congressman Gates. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.